Hey, listeners. My name is Elisha, the founder of the Witnesses podcast. It's so beautiful to have you listening to our podcast. And I want you to know something that means a whole lot to me. Thank you for tuning in. And one thing I love to tell all of our listeners is it's not just about you listening, but listening to understand. Understanding is the most important thing. So important. So you have to listen, learn, and practice. Thank you so very much and happy listening.
Hi, Jeff. It's nice to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, that's so good. Okay, so before we begin with your introduction, oftentimes I love to talk about the essence of this show, which is to invite amazing guests. Amazing guests like Jeff, guests who have triumphed over one challenges or another, and they came out of it victoriously. Why is that? The reason is we believe that in our audience, there might be someone who is stuck up in a situation that Jeff came out of triumphantly. So, by that person or people listening to Jeff, they might get a piece of information that could transform their lives. So, that's the essence of the show. So, within the next few minutes, Jeff, I want you to talk to us about your story, the challenges, whatsoever challenges it is that you faced and you overcame. Then afterwards, I've got some questions for you. Okay,
Sure,
let's get
sure.
started, Jeff. All right.
Yeah. So, for me, my story is an interesting one. As a child, I was sexually abused as a child, and there was a lot of shame that went with that, as one might imagine. It was something that happened from the age of 7 through 12. Even being born in Canada and then moving to the United States at the age of 11, that abuser, through connection to our family as a family friend, even then ended up visiting the United States where we lived a couple times, and so it was really rough because you thought, wow, well, at least I could escape it by moving, but then that didn't even happen. Um, and so, as one can imagine, all of that is very difficult to deal with as a kid. You take that through your teenage years and try to work through it. There were moments in which I attempted to share what happened with family and was largely ignored or told I was just outright lying, which is just probably the worst way to respond to a message like that. Um, but the story is a lot deeper than just me, and that's where I believe we come together around the topic on faith. Um, faith's an interesting journey in that when you truly believe and you truly have faith, the phrase "God will do no harm" exists, and yet it's hard for people to settle that phrase when things like natural disasters happen and terrible atrocities happen. When a child who's 7 years old dies of cancer happens, how could somebody possibly say that? And we often say those things as observers on the outside. In my case, obviously, I'm not an observer. I was a participant. I was involved. And what is the most compelling part of this story is that there were other children in that path of abuse who ended up committing suicide. And for me, I feel I was put in that path for this purpose that we're here today, for me to talk about it, for me to have the strong shoulders, the strength to carry this burden, and eventually share this story with others, healing, to create an impact that you can live beyond that damage and trauma and still do good in this world. And so for me, that's where my faith has led me. That's what my belief is, that this struggle has turned into strength, the strength being my adult years as a father, as a husband, as a business owner, and now that strength turned into superpower. That superpower to sit here, speak with people like yourself, go on shows like yours, write books and be on stages and speak to others that this is not something that has to dictate your life. This is something that you can find healing on and ultimately um, be impactful for others.
Amazing. I tell you. Wow. Okay, so let us start with the questions, Jeff. All right, so let's say someone asks you, "Hey Jeff, how can I lead to heal and create impact?" What would your response be?
Yeah, your question was how can I learn to heal and create impact?
Yeah,
Yeah, first I think we have to ask ourselves, you know, why. A lot of people will lament why me instead of asking why was I put on this path? What is it about this path that if you have, if you are a believer in Christ, you know, you then ask yourself, well, then what is it about me that has this strength to be in this path? And I feel when you answer that question, then the answers come, right? And so to me, it goes back to when I look at those families of those children that have cancer at age 7, of which my maternal grandparents, my aunt, died at 17 from leukemia, diagnosed in school age years. When you look back and then you look at what at times some of those families go and do, their struggle becomes strength, and the resiliency is their strength to go forward. The resiliency is their ability to not go into a shell and just exist. Their superpower then becomes maybe they help other families with childhood cancer. They become a support network. Maybe the mother authors a journal of just how to get by, steps that they took. And so when you take that struggle, I think the first thing that has to happen, and I should probably say now, I am not a medical doctor, I am not a clinician, I am not a psychiatrist or a psychologist. What I can tell you is I've moved from survivor to victor over this abuse. And so all I'm doing here now is sharing my story. But I know that my story creates impact for others because there's a lot of people that believe in this world. They are alone. And it's a rightful feeling because stories like mine do not get spoken about and really don't get spoken about by men. Women often keep this kind of abuse secret to a insular group of women. And so a lot of times, yeah, I mean, even some of the topics we've touched on, if you have a friend, a family member that has a child that is diagnosed with cancer that does pass on, or is killed in a car accident, or has a tragic death, unfortunately, what ends up happening is that friend group doesn't know how to handle that, and then they evaporate away. And that's and it's not that makes them a bad person. They just don't have, like, where is the toolkit in life for this stuff? It doesn't exist. But the toolkit is in here. It's in us. And we have to ask that question. That toolkit reveals itself, I feel, when we ask that question of why am I putting this down? What strength do I have? Because we all have strength in some capacity or another. What strength do I have to weather it? And, for me, again, my strength is being somebody that can speak about this openly, publicly, um, and lead this conversation. and and just in doing that creates impact.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, I've got a personal question. I'm so eager to get answers from you. All right, so let us talk about your spiritual life. When did Christ found you, and how did it happen? Can you share that with us?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up around religion and the church. I was baptized, uh, probably in that 12 to 13-year-old range, which was very important for my family, especially important for my grandfather, who I loved dearly. He passed away. I guess it'll be 2 summers this year. Um, I still remember, they visited from Canada when that happened. We were here in the States at that point, and they came for the week leading into that Sunday weekend, and then the next morning, Monday, they were leaving. And he walked with me to the bus stop, and I just always remember that time as being such a connective moment to him. So it was all there throughout those years. Um, so that's why I found Christ. Yeah,
Wow, amazing. Okay, the third question. So, why should leaders focus on healing and impact for those around them? You get it?
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a central theme of I guess you could say my teachings, of the things that I talk about often, the things that I write about. Again, if we go back to the fact that in life we rarely ever are given a toolkit, right? There's 8 billion people on this planet, 8 billion unique people. And just on that note, I'll take a little sidetrack and then I'll um, get back to healing and impact. If you don't believe that you have value in this world, I'll put it through this analogy. There are how many Bugatti Veyrons made a year? 20? And that's like the supercar to get, I think. I'm not a big supercar guy, but I know that that's one of them, right? There are so many Porsche GTs. There's so many super yachts made a year. There's so many amazing diamond Rolexes and incredible pieces of jewelry and dresses and, glasses and but yet there's multiple. And there's multiple every year. And yet every year of our being on this planet, we're one. We're 1 in 8 billion. Every year we get to be that 1 in 8 billion. And no one else gets it. No one else can buy it. No one else can be it except for you. And so if you don't believe you have the ability for impact, think about it through that analogy. People aspire for those luxury items, those things in our society people hold value near and dear in. And yet there can be multiple. There's one of you. So yeah, you have the ability to have impact. And but before I think impact can happen, a broken person feels just broken. You can't do much with a broken structure, right? If the foundation of your home is crumbling, you very well can't remodel the upstairs. Right? If it's crumbling, you can't expand on it. If your backyard is in disarray, it's going to be hard to put a pool in the backyard. So that healing is the first step for me. And I think as leaders, if we care about the people around us, the people we employ, the people we meet in our life, we have to be interested in seeing that they're a whole person. And we have to create these environments where they can come to us and and do that. So as an example, in our local community, in our school, um, Thanksgiving is a big holiday here in the United States. And so we, it's typically a 1 week break. Well, the day before Thanksgiving holiday, which then leads into the Christmas season, there was a fight between two high school students. And one of the high school students pulled out a knife. which in our school system means you're immediately expelled. You have criminal charges pressed against you. In a moment, that young man upended his life, upended his family's life. So now let's think about you as a leader. You're the boss. I know the child's name. I'm obviously not going to share it, but um, today I know his parents. But let's say both those parents work for someone. They work in a career. And what does Monday morning look like for that mom and dad when their son is now home because he's expelled from school and they have to go to work because they have to provide for their family? What happens there? Are they going to be on the spot? Are they going to be performing at 100%? Probably not. As a leader, take this story and ask yourself if those were my people and their son got in trouble, have I created a place by which they would come to me, as the morning got settled in and ask to say, hey, I need to speak with you privately for a few minutes. And have you created the kind of place where they will come to you and say, my son got into this trouble. We don't yet quite all know what it's going to mean. But we know we're going to have some criminal charges. We know he's expelled from school, so we're going to have to figure that out. Probably going to need to make extra phone calls throughout the day when I'm normally working. I'm probably going to have to miss some work. Have you created that kind of environment where those people would come to you and trust you with that kind of private, personal, damaging, shameful, embarrassing information? To me, that's the test of a leader who's creating impact, who's creating healing for their people.
Amazing. You know, I love to say this to people that are so brilliant. I tell you, your words are filled up with so much insight. And for that reason, our conversation is so educating. Okay, the last question, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let us say someone asks you this question. Hey, Jeff, how can I accept that my past is for me instead of it happened to me? You get it?
Mm-hmm.
He says, how can I accept? I want to know how to accept that my past is for me and not against me, or it didn't happen to me, but it happened for me. So what would your response
Mm-hmm.
be?
Yeah, I mean, that line, it doesn't happen to you, it happens for you, has become a very popular statement, very popular phrase. It's shared a lot from stages. It's in a lot of social media posts. And it really is, I think it's the essence of my story. It's the essence of um, what I ultimately found as the answer. And again, I'll expand on that statement of it doesn't happen to me, it happens for me. That question, why? What about me? What about my strength was looked upon, decided that I could stand in this moment, stand in that time, be in that path of destruction? For me, that answer is strength. The strength to shoulder it, uh, you know, internally as a person to not end my life over it as two other young men did, going way back in their teenage years subsequent to that abuse. Because if we're 1 in 8 billion, we're valued by someone, and we know who that someone is, right? And so to end that design early is terrible. So we ask ourselves why? What strength do I have? How can I take this terrible thing? And if the worst thing that's happened to you in life is as a child, your parents were really hard on you about school and grades, and you really tried your hardest, but then you just failed something, and then they came down on you, and that framed you. Well, then that's the worst thing that's happened in your life, and that's okay. There's no reason to weigh this out. I think that's another answer in all of this is when people hear these stories of it didn't happen to me, it happened for me, I found strength. They say to themselves, yeah, but my thing with my dad talking to me about that one time I failed that big project. It's not the same as what Jeff went through or what you went through or anything. Don't weigh that out. We don't have to weigh one story to the other. Again, because if there's that 1 in 8 billion, that story has been, it's part of the fiber of who you are as 1 in 8 billion. So it's equally impactful because it happened to you. So for me, it goes all back to that question. What about me? What is it about this moment, that time, that instance, that destruction, that trauma, whatever? What is it about that was meant for me? And why? What is seen in me that can handle this? Who am I meant to take that story to? How am I meant to express it? Where do I tell it? Right? Think about it like who, what, why, when, where questions about you related to that past. And when we ask those questions, they become better questions. I think that's the big secret in life, is asking bigger and better questions of ourselves, of each other, of the world each day. Not one thing to ask once. A series of questions always asked. It's interesting right now in our society, in our time we're in, that we have ChatGPT to give us the answers. Right? We've always had someone above to give us the answers. We've always had the book. Right here, this is my grandfather's Bible to give us the answers. Right? This is the original ChatGPT. But the way you make ChatGPT work today is you get really good at asking questions. And when you ask those questions, you get better life. And when you ask better questions of yourself, you have a bigger, better life.
Beautiful, amazing. So, in conclusion, Jeff, what would you like to say to the audience? Then maybe there is someone who wants to reach out to you. How can that be possible?
Yeah. I mean, I've got a simple equation and I've shared it. Identify that struggle if you don't already know it, right? Like some people will grew up in a life where mom and dad were around and very safe, secure. Maybe they didn't have much, but they had a great childhood. They can remember fond memories, but maybe they just feel there's more for them. You've got to start. You got to identify where that struggle is, what that struggle is about. How does it frame you? What did it do in your mind? What does it do in your soul? Right. So that equation is that struggle, identify it or accept it, be aware of it, and own it, and then find the strength in that struggle. For me, it was I've got that broad shoulders to carry. I've got that broad shoulders to say this is my story outwardly, and then that superpower is find a way to take your struggle, turn it into strength, and then share and lean into others with it, and that in itself becomes your superpower. So strength to struggle, turn into superpower. That would be what I would part with. If you want to get to know me more, it's very simple. I would say it's probably best. I have a great book called The Space for Leadership. You can go to my website, thejeffg.com/book, and it'll take you right there. Thejeffg.com is also a site to just learn about me more in general, but a good place to start would be thejeffg.com/book or /book, and you'll get some highlights of what we shared here today and see how to get the book from there.
All right, that's so good, amazing. So that's going to be the end of the show. Thank you for your time, Jeff. It really means a whole lot. Thank
You're
you so
welcome.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this incredible episode. Your support means the world to us, and we truly value you. We look forward to having you join us for the next episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, please consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. Your feedback is greatly appreciated.